is up, everybody? It's me, Choice Minis, Steve Thomas, here once again. Let's get some music rocking. We're back with our Arch-Revenant. Arch-Revenant? Arch-Revenant? I don't know if we've really ever decided on that. So I got a little bit of work done today, just off stream. We're partway through doing the blends on the weapon and the mask. We got a little bit of the non-metallic metal gold doing its thing. There's still some highlights and stuff to finish up on there, but you guys can start to see where we are going with this stuff. But today, whenever you're watching this, this isn't the point. I mean, this is the point at some point. We'll come back and finish this guy. We'll do more of the lighting and stuff around the rest of the model. We'll take care of the bits that remain on this one. But in the meantime, tonight, the one that I want to get done, we got some wings to do. We got some wangalings to do. Still not sure how I feel about how I've got this mounted right now. This has been my all day thinking about it situation, is how have I got this boy mounted? And this is part of it. I mean, I did do the thing that I normally do where I burnt the pin into the actual guy, like into the body there. Just as an easy way of, rather than drilling holes and whatnot. I'm gonna take the slightly harder way out on this one and super glue them on there. I love that this is an entirely separate creature being dude. That they're like, yeah, no, he just has it's very reminiscent of Alariel, where they're like, oh no, she's got a giant, beetle to ride around on. This guy's like, yeah, I got a beetle backpack that's cool because it's also wingling. It's my wings. Just put a drop of super glue in there, and I'm just gonna use the activator real quick. And of course it's gonna want more super glue than that because that's my life. And of course it's stuck to my finger because, again, my life. This is how my life is. This is why I hate super glue, and why super glue hates me. We work together in hatred. Ugh. See? Because super glue and I don't feel the same way about it, how it should work. That's right. Very little super glue and a lot of lighters. Sorry, you guys can't see this on stream. I am heating up my pin, and I am stabbing my long, so now it is cooled down. Seems like the type of damn fiery pin good time. Don't do that. Or do. I don't know. I'm not your parents. I should not be legally responsible in any way for what you do and do not do with your life. That seems a genuinely poor decision. Do not take my life advice. Alright. Now I've got all this extra super glue on the back of our dude, and it is already falling back apart again. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Super nifty neato. Alright. Let's see if we can't get this to actually work out. This would be where everyone yells at me, use super glue gap filler, super glue thick, super glue different super glue. You know what? You're probably right. And by probably, I mean 100%. So we're gonna paint this guy in two separate directions because I'm tired of dealing with super glue. I'm tired of dealing with pins. It is warm outside. I've already spent several hours painting today, but I'm happy to be on here. I am just happy to be live. I'm happy that I can take as much of this week as I want and dedicate it to hobby time. That's what I'm happy about right now. So let's throw this guy together on there. Oh yeah. The body is going to be painted separately from the wings. So really what I'm going to try and get done tonight is the wings I might come back and do some carapace stuff, but I don't really, I don't know. I'm not really feeling it right now, so we'll see. We'll see how long this takes. I might get into some of the carapace on the wings just because I know what I'm doing for coloring and stuff, but I'm not really sure I want to do the body and eyes and all the rest of it tonight. So we will see where we get to. I'm not, you know, we don't need to be doing this all night long. I just wanted to show you guys my process on this one. This is not how I'm doing the gradient on the wings, but I am doing a similar gradient, or sorry, not on the wings, on our glaive and our face mask. I'm using the same gradient, so that transition that we were creating on here, I stopped a couple of hours ago so that I could make dinner and do all sorts of other stuff, you know, be an adult. The gradient that we've got on our glaive here is the same gradient that we're going to be using on the wings, but I am going to be top down. So the top of the wings is going to be purple. The bottom of the wings is going to be our yellow color. So let's get into it. So the yellow color that we're using is Teneri Yellow. If I wanted to lighten this up some, I might add a little bit of extra birch into it just to bring that color that we've been using throughout the rest of the model onto this part of the wings. But I think that I'm going to end up using that more in other parts. Like I like how it ends up in other parts of the model instead. So I guess I can mix this on camera. So just scale color to Vallejo airbrush thinner. I'm gonna briefly mix with a brush. I do this because every time I haven't done it this way, something bad has happened. I also go around and actually just clean out any of the like filth that comes to the top of the airbrush. Then I'm just gonna use back pressure on the airbrush. And then we're gonna test. Yeah, that's looking like nice coverage, so let's get in there. So, first things first, as with all things, as with all of my advice, take it with a grain of salt. I am not the greatest airbrush operator, but many thin coats. Many thin coats will eventually get us coverage. One thick coat can ruin things permanently. So, again, we would rather do this in many thin steps than one thick step. So, we're just gonna take our time. We're already using an airbrush. This is already a faster process than doing this by brush, so we don't need to put pressure on ourselves to get it done instantaneously. But what we are looking for is we are looking for full coverage of this yellow before we start working through the transition process. So I'm going to bring this up to full opacity, or near full opacity as I can get, with our yellow all across the model. Or at the very least across the wings, right? That's really what we're aiming to paint right now. I'm going to get this to like as near full opacity as I can. Pardon me. Just before I went live, I literally downed an entire bowl of homemade ramen, so it was spicy. I'm very sweaty. But suffice to say, we want to get pretty much as full coverage on this stuff as we can right now. And then we'll come in and start working the purple color into the top, and then we'll work the transition afterwards. So all of that to say, I'm probably going to have to mix this a couple times. I might pull out the hairdryer just to ensure that we are getting nice dry coat, or nice dry layers between our coats. We don't want to go too quickly and end up spider webbing or introducing weird textures and stuff into the paint. So again, I mix small pots. I come back, I let this stuff dry fully. I treat it very much the same as far as process goes as I do with a regular brush technique. Like, I don't think that the fundamentals of putting on paint change because you are using a different means of applying the paint. So we want nice dry layers in between, or at least flashed off layers. We don't. We don't want to rush. We don't need to rush. We don't have to rush. We can take this process as it comes. And the reason why we're doing the light color first, as opposed to going in with the purple and then building up the gradient the other direction, and the reason why I'm going to use full opacity purple and then do the blending in between is because I can hopefully do the modulation a little bit better. Oh, getting a little bit thick there with the coat. I feel that I can handle modulations of color better when I have both colors on the model, and then I can come back and do the corrections with midtones. So rather than getting all crazy go nuts and going all the way for the transition off the hop, I find that I have better success with the airbrush when I'm going from both directions. So when I'm going, I have my full opacity lights, I have my full opacity darks, and then I transition, I use the airbrush to create the transition path in between, because I can come in with transition colors and make them fairly translucent and work that way. And then if I really need to, I can come back with the brush afterwards and tidy up. I know there are lots of people who have other techniques for this. I have seen many other videos, but this just happens to be how I'm most comfortable doing it. Again, it might be that I'm taking way too long doing this. That's fine. We can take a long time to do things. Taking a long time to do things has never hurt anyone. Again, just this is how fast paint dries out where I'm from. I already have crispies and stuff that are dried to the inside of my airbrush cup, so I'm just having to monitor and make sure that I'm not ending up with stuff clogging either the brush, like clogging the tip. And by crusties, I definitely mean dry paint. Like, there's just dried paint nearly instantaneously after I put paint in the cup. So doesn't matter, it's not a dilution thing, it's nothing else, it's just that it's, 30 degrees Celsius and like 14% humidity outside. That is just how life is when you live in essentially a desert. A desert that is rapidly getting worse thanks climate change. Thank you, climate change. Without you, I would never have known what it feels like to live in a desert. All right. At the same time, let's pull out our hairdryer. Just flash off the remaining paint. And if you're thinking to yourself, Steven, I can see lots of texture on that model. Why is there so much texture on those wings? It was intentional. So I turned, when I was priming this model, on the back side of these wings, I wanted to turn, and I hope that this comes across on stream. It might get crushed out just because of compression. But when I was base coat, or when I was not even base coating, when I was thinking about this model, I was like, I want this to be Twilight. Like, I want Twilight to be reflected in the wings and the magical weapon. So I put my my FW Delarani ink into the airbrush, turn the pressure way down to like 12 psi or so, to the point where it was shooting splatter of the size that I kind of wanted, like of that texture that I sort of wanted. So I think it was 12 to 18 psi or so. It might have been more than that. The pressure gauge on my airbrush compressor is not that great because it's just like, it's a Harbor Freight Know Nothing brand. At any rate, so I turned the pressure way down until it was shooting off the like size of essentially globs of paint that I wanted, and then just went to it. So it's not entirely opaque, like with the white highlights, and that's just going to add texture to the wings themselves, so that as we are building up this sort of gradient and texture and all the rest of it, it's going to look more and more like what I'm imagining in my head. We're gonna end up with a starry field on this guy again. So the starry field effect, I wanted to build it way into the background of the paint job, and then I also wanted it to come all the way to the forefront of the paint job. Like, I wanted it to be present at both sides, just so that we had that sort of interesting texture situation. So, again, I'm just mixing up. This is Sunset Purple from Vallejo. Or it's not from Vallejo. From Scale Color. So this is Sunset Purple. It's just into the airbrush cup, again, with some thinner. You can see I'm mixing up less of this stuff, and I am probably going to put a little bit more thinner in this than I'd put in Artinary Yellow. No, I'm kind of happy with where that's at for opacity. I am just going to wipe down the sides of the cup with some water, make sure that we don't have any bits floating around in there. Then just back pressure mix. Great. And now, we start to put full onto the model. And right now I'm sort of outlining the furthest, I don't want to say south, but like the furthest down portions of the full opacity purple. Now you'll note that this doesn't make much sense anatomically how it would be like this, but shoosh, I'm having fun with paint. And because we're using nice thin layers, I can come back fairly quickly and put more paint onto the model as we get towards these full opacities, right? I am using, because I'm certain somebody will ask at some point in time, I am using a Badgerchrome Renegade. I have had this airbrush for about 3-4 years now. I can't say that I love this brush, but I also don't know what I would improve about it or how I would go about shopping for a different one. I've had recommendations to get the Infinity CR, and to that I say what is better about it, so I can determine whether or not that is things I value. And other than I just had a giant clog blowout on me, which is not cool. Not sure what happened there. I've never gotten really a straight answer from people about why I would want to swap to Infinity CRs. I know there are plenty of people who love them. I don't know what the feature set is to decide on that change. I can tell you the things that annoy me about this thing. You saw one of them. Cleaning on the brass bits, on the tip holder, on really most of the guts on this thing is awful. Like, just straight up real bad. Which is neither a it's not the greatest. Like, I'm not a super fan of this airbrush, mostly because cleaning the internals is bad. But I've also played with like super cheap airbrushes that have had much easier internals to maintain, and they have been equally bad in other directions. So I don't know. I don't know how to call this one, and maybe if somebody has ideas of what would help, or what sort of like measures of an airbrush make an airbrush better or worse in their estimation, I'm all ears. I mean, most everybody talks about the same thing. Make sure it's dual action. Make sure it's gravity fed. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, well, I got those down. I don't like the way this assembles. I don't like the fact that it doesn't protect the needle particularly well when it's running on 0.2. Like, it's better with, like, a 0.4 needle on it. I don't like part availability, even though I have, like, a full Badger parts distributor in town here. PM Hobby is fine for many things, but they are not good at keeping things in stock. And they're the ones that I get the airbrush from. Unfortunately, my friendly local gaming store, the one that I buy most of my gaming supplies from, doesn't really believe in airbrushing, because, I don't know, they don't. They're like, if you want that, go on Amazon. And they're not entirely wrong in that standpoint. Okay, let's keep going. Let's get this all the way to full opacity on the purple, and then we'll start working the transition a little bit. Then we'll start talking about how we are going to start separating elements of these wings. So what I'm doing here, just for those who are uninitiated in the world of airbrush, is I'm using the angle of the model itself to help me only hit the areas that I want. So since airbrushes should fire out in a nice circle, debatable with some airbrushes, but that's fine. Since airbrushes fire paint out in a circle, use the angle that I'm firing out of that circle, or the angle of that circle, to place paint. So I'm using the edge of the circle in a lot of cases, so let's make sure that this is on camera. If I hit, you can see I'm about an inch away or so, and I make a dot that size, right? I'm using part of that dot on the model. And part of it I am shooting past the model itself. So part of it is going onto the model. Part of it I am shooting past. And again, we're just putting enough paint on right now to reach full opacity with our purple color. And then we'll come back and we will blend in our yellow again, just so, because when I mix these two colors, we get a nice, you guys can almost see the magenta transition that happens in between, that pink transition. I'm using two colors that I know mix very, very well. I've done this mixture before. And so knowing that mix creates that nice vibrant pink in the middle, it really gives me the confidence to try this ridiculous transition. So the next step that we're going to do is we are going to use that transitional color, that transition pink that I've got going on there, by mixing it in the airbrush cup, and then we'll clean up some of that. And then the last step is we're going to clean up, we're going to clean up with coming back to the yellow in the end. So in the meantime, I am going to wash out the airbrush cup just quickly while I wait for this to dry a little bit. This is the thing with airbrushing that I see a lot. Not a lot. This is a thing that I used to do with airbrushing that I know is not ideal. Using it as a quick measure or a quick escape from what you would rather be doing, right? Like in the case of the airbrush, you know, if I'm trying to base coat Marines quickly, I would rather be able to just throw down a coat with the airbrush really quick and have my, you know, Ultramarines painted. That to me is easier than having to go through the process of base coat and highlight and all the rest of it, which undoubtedly other people think that as well. It doesn't produce the best results. It sort of, the colors can look flat or they end up looking very, very airbrushed. And that was always the look that I got at the end of it, was I was like, this looks very airbrushed. And part of it is taking the time to care about the transitions. You can't just slap in one color. Like if you were to equate it to like the GW, you know, base coat, you know, what is it? Base coat, wash, edge highlight situation that they used to espouse everywhere. I don't even know if they still teach that on Warhammer TV or not. They might. I don't know. Sorry, I am also at the same time mixing our colors in the cup. So you can see we have a very vibrant pink. I'm just going to tone that down slightly with slightly more purple. That's more to where I want our next color to be. And I am going to thin this down quite a bit with airbrush thinner and maybe with a little bit of AK Interactive matte medium, ultra matte medium. Not because I want the ultra matteness, but because I don't want to add more thinner. There is a consistency to airbrush paint that where if you go beyond and start getting closer to water or thinner rather than paint and medium, it will just splatter no matter what. It won't go to micro dots. It won't go to nice fine. You'll have to turn the pressure way up and then you start blowing the model all over the place. It's a mess. I could show you guys that if anybody is interested. I can show you what happens when you start being done with your airbrush paint. When you get out of reasonable transitions and start accidentally going towards so again, I'm just right now coming and covering our transition point with a nice intermediary. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go from this sort of pink and just add more and more yellow and bring that down our wings. And then we'll come back with one final pass at yellow. And the reason we're taking the time to build the transition all the way through is I can move the transition to areas that it wasn't in before. I can also move around where that yellow is. But you can see that with this transition, we can be very gentle with the color gradients, and it looks quite nice. This is always the issue with any airbrush paint is painting edges is not painting thin edges. No es bueno. So again, I'm just gonna come in a couple of quick spritzes, just filling in some of our areas where I want a little bit more of the transitional color, or I want to achieve more opacity with the transitional color. And if we want to go darker, we can always come back with our other colors, right? Like, we don't have to stick exactly to each color every time. So towards the bottom of that transition that we've just created, I'm going to add a bunch more, or a little bit more yellow into the pot, stir it up, and you guys can see how light we're getting with this. This is now into our desaturated pink yellow color. But I do want to get right at the very ends of this, I do want to bring in, there we go. I am going to keep our yellow right at the very ends of the wings, right? So we'll void out the cup probably after this. I might add just a touch of purple back into it, and nope, we're going to void the cup after this. So whatever's... We'll finish off with an actual yellow, full brightness yellow at the bottom. Why did I want yellow all the way through? Why did I go through the process of undercoating it? If I'm just covering it all up now, it helps with the transitions, trust me. You guys can see the transitions on the blade here. They're a little rough still, which is fine. We're in process there. But to get to this full yellow does take quite a while, and this was going over white. And then putting any amount of purple on it immediately puts it to pink, right? Just the way these pigments mix, any amount of, really any amount of purple brings it to pink, which is fine. Knowing that, of course, means that the more yellow I could put on it at the start, probably the easier it is going to be to rebuild my transitions, which is exactly what I am expecting. I've done this mix before, not just on this model. I've played around with this mixture. I love these colors together. I was looking for an excuse to put them on a Sylvaneth model because I like the idea of sort of this twilight gradient that you only get, well, dusk gradient, I guess, that it's really hard to achieve in many other ways. Like, this is the purpling sky dusk gradient is not something that is easily achieved in a lot of measures. So this is just the way that I like to do it, and it's a way I've figured out how to do it. I mean, it did start with that piece of artwork that I found. That was not that long ago, I think, that I found it. Maybe a couple months. Maybe it was less than that. Maybe it was a couple weeks. I don't know. Time is a flat circle, and COVID doesn't help. So, yeah. So we continue to build up paint on that guy. Again, we're just going to let that... I'm going to pull a ye olde hairdryer. Just get it to flash a little faster. Coolio. And let's get back in with our yellow, and let's just make sure that we've got a nice thin yellow so that we can put it in on the tips of the wings here and really get that full transition to twilight. Then we'll come back, we will add a little bit more purple to the top of those little wings, maybe a tiny amount of blue or black ink into the purple just to really sell that going to purpling twilight at the top before we start taking the next steps on this. So let's get yellow. So again, this is scale color Teneri yellow. Just gonna put a little drop in the cup. Blob. And again, airbrush thinner. I'm gonna put 3-4 drops. I do want to extend this a little further, so I'm gonna use AK Interactive's matte medium, ultra matte medium. Just give it a good old swishity swish. Get that mixed up. That is fairly transparent, so I know that I've got a mix that I'm happy with as far as transparency on there. It is going to be transparent. Like, this is going to be at least 3 or 4 coats to get it to come to where we want it to be, but that's okay. That is the point of doing what I'm doing right now is that I want to be able to build it slowly. Unless, of course, I'm really bad at this, and then I'm gonna accidentally put way too much in one area. It's fine. So again, just coming in along the bottoms of the wings. Using the angle of the model, using the angle of the airbrush to only cover the areas that I want to have yellow. So that was the problem that I had on the other side of the wings, is that I was shooting onto a different part of the wings than I was looking at, so I got a little bit carried away down at the bottom, but that's okay. Those will eventually be full opacity. And as I was saying earlier, you know, it always pays. Let areas flash off, let them fully dry before you start moving on them. So keep breaking out the old hair dryer. If I weren't streaming this, I would definitely just like take a break. Give it 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes, give it a couple of seconds, let it flash off on its own. But we're on stream, so we're gonna do it the slightly faster way. So again, I'm aiming off the model. I'm just giving it enough. There's very little, like I'm barely opening the gate on the brush. So it is a dual action brush. I'm barely opening our paint gate, letting just a small amount flow through because we want to be delicate. We want to build this up gradually. We want to maintain that pink that we just spent time putting down. And we still want this to transition all the way to that nice bright yellow right at the ends of the wings. So again, another round, more hair dryer. All right, let's get some more yellow on there. So you guys can see, just on the back of my thumb, that's how transparent we're shooting. We are shooting pretty transparent paint right now. And by pretty transparent, I mean pretty and transparent. And as much as possible, again, I am shooting off of the model and just using the edge of the cone of paint that the airbrush produces to highlight those, or to build our transition. We're just using the very edge of this cone, except for where the like wings dangle down there. Where we got wing dangles, then wing dangles, those are going to be our very brightest yellow parts. Both because of the shape of the wings and its convenience to painting them, but also because it kind of gives us a nice little break in the silhouette to give us those nice bright tips to the wings. Oh boy. I love this technique. I really do. I think that this is one of the cooler things you can accomplish with an airbrush. And I know there are other things you can do with airbrushes. I'm aware. But these like really nice, dramatic two-color transitions. You know, we are going from a fully like sunset purple. It is a fully like dark color, all the way to this nice bright Teneri yellow, this desaturated yellow that we've got here. That giant transition in color. This takes forever with a brush. I can attest to this. I spent most of my morning doing this transition by brush as I was watching other streamers stream their stuff, and I was like, man, if only there were a way. I already knew there was a way, and I knew that I was going to do this on the wings, so... And yes, I could mask off, you know, I could mask this entire thing off and do it all with the airbrush, but no. 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 There's a reason why we are doing this to the wings and not to the glaive and face mask and all the rest of it. A, I'm not that good with the airbrush. I am not Angel Heraldez. So the other thing that is different with this transition, with the inside transition versus the outside transition, is I do have more purple on the outside transition. I already know that. I want it to seem more purple from the back side. Just when we look at it compositionally, on the back side of this model, there is not a lot of purple present because we're looking at, the back end of the weapon. We're not looking at the face mask, really. We've got a little bit of face mask up at the top. So I wanted compositionally to balance out we have a lot more purple area on the front of the model. So I was like, all right, well, if I have less purple on the outside than on the inside, it'll make sense. Like it'll help with that transition. So, or it'll help to sort of balance out the model. So now I'm just catching the very tips, making sure we're at as full an opacity as we can get with our yellow. I'm out of yellow on the brush, so I'm just going to remix just a dab more. And we will be good with our airbrushing for this phase of the model. I don't want to say today. If I'm feeling ambitious, we might get all the way to taking care of... I don't know. I know what I want to do for coloring on the beetle itself. I want the beetle to look like a very separate entity, so we are going to give him some very different colors. This also happens with Alariel the Everqueen in like box art and stuff for Alariel. The beetle is a very different set of colors than Alariel is, and I wanted to kind of integrate the like magical parts of our Arch-Revenant, so our Arch-Revenant, whichever you prefer. So like this magical backpack wings beetle friend, I wanted the like magical bit of him being able to make a tree fly. I wanted that to feel like it was one, like part of a whole, right? But as far as the coloring of the carapace on the beetle, I wanted that to I wanted it to reflect my idea of what fall insects are. And we'll get to what that means in a bit, but it is a slightly warmer set of colors than what you see on like the Alariel box art. I don't even know what the beetle looks like on the box art for this now that I think about it. I might go and look at that. Box art isn't that far away from me. Maybe I'll take a look at that and be like, oh, that is a way better interpretation of this model than what I've got going on. But so I'm just shooting a little tiny bit of extra yellow into some other places just to really finish off our yellowiness. And yes, I did get some splatters on there. I'm not super worried because the end part of this process is that I do actually want twilight splatters on this. Like I am going to exactly. I was talking about it before. I want this guy to look like he is like there is twilight magic at work here. Like this is a twilight sort of situation, and I don't mean like sparkly vampires twilight. I mean like the magic of dusk time. I don't know how better to describe it, I guess, than that. I like telling little stories with my models, so You know, I always think of like dusk twilight as being, you know, the end of a day, even though, you know, you have like, depending on the time of year, and especially depending on the time of year when you're at the latitude that I'm at, you know, twilight can be 4:30 in the afternoon. Twilight can be like 11:45 at night. But I'm talking about like that time where the sun is going down, where you get like the sky fire dusk sort of situation, like what we got going on with our little doodly model here. But I wanted that sort of twilight magic to be a big part of this guy. So both with the fall sort of idea, like this guy is a part of a larger army they are fall Sylvaneth, and before that it was fall colored Wildwood Rangers, and yeah, all the rest of it. Like I think I have some fall Wildwood Rangers around here still. I may have used them all for other things, chop them up and turn them into bits, but very fall colored army all the way through. You know, there's our Spirit of Durthu. Got a Dryad. Fall Dryads, right? Lots of vibrant oranges, browns, yellows, little bits of green. With this guy, I wanted to really take that idea of the ends of things and also bring it into the like twilight transitions, the dusk transitions. So that's what we're doing with our glaive. That's what we're doing with the mask. And that's what we're doing with the wings on our beetle friend. Now, I'm going to have to take 1 second here while I roll away and go and grab... I'm going to grab some gloss varnish. And we're going to gloss varnish this whole thing. And then we'll start talking about what the next steps are. So give me like 2 seconds here while I wheel over. It's a big desk, but it's never big enough. This is my life with desks, I'll tell you. The desk is always big. Desk is never big enough. So give me 1 second here. I'm just going to wheel over and grab the gloss varnish, and I will be right back. Oh, hello, Shiva. Hello, Artemis. Also, I'm being visited. It's uncommon. Infrequent. That I am visited by either of my sheeps while I'm streaming, but Artemis has made her way into the room and is laying directly in the way of me actually wheeling my way over to the gloss varnish, but lucky for me, I can just get around it. I use Liquitex gloss varnish for this. I'm not using something fancy or crazy. This stuff is like, I don't know. It was $23.30 for the giant bottle of it that will last me several years. So it's nice. It dries really clear. I have never had anything go UV weird on me for using this. It is a little bit of a pain to clear out of the brush, but a little ISO takes care of it. All right. Now you might be asking yourself, why am I doing a gloss varnish of this? Well, our next step is to make this much more purple. And make that purple much more pronounced and darker at the tops of these wings. Because as much as I like that sunset purple color, and I do, I want to give the impression of going all the way towards twilight. And of course, twilight doesn't stop at like a midland purple. Twilight stops at basically black. And so to get that depth up into those top corners, I'm going to not necessarily cheat, but cheat. I don't want to call it cheating because it's not really cheating. And you guys can see I am being fairly heavy with the coat of gloss varnish. But that's how life is. Now, the great / awful part of gloss varnish is that it doesn't come out of the airbrush easily. It absolutely does not. Even using it quickly and being diligent about cleanup in the time, so I probably won't be able to get to I probably won't be able to get to other airbrush colors just because I know I'm going to blow this out of the airbrush, and even blowing it out and being very diligent about cleaning it up right now, some gloss varnish is going to stick in the airbrush, and it really does require me taking isopropyl alcohol to the airbrush and disassembling to get it back out. Once it has hardened up or started to harden, there is literally nothing I can do with water and a brush to scrub it out, so it's just going to be one of those things that I'm going to have to take some time, disassemble the airbrush and whatnot. But what I am going to do, just in the interim, is probably take a little bit of a break. So, I am going to not necessarily be talking. I will be here. So if you message me or whatever, I'm here. I'm just going to put myself on mute for a few minutes while I use the hairdryer. So one of the things with varnish is it doesn't really like heat that much as it's setting. So I'm going to be using the hairdryer on low and cold air through it. Just, it's going to be a slow series of minutes here as I get this all at least through the tacky stage. Yeah, so I'll see you guys in a... Well, I'll be here. I'm just going to be on mute for a second. So enjoy some background music. Okay, just so that you guys are aware of what I'm doing here. I'm constantly checking, because the second that this varnish goes from being tacky, so what tacky means to me is if I move my finger and it feels like my finger is sticking. So on this side, I can move my finger down like the ribs of the wings and stuff, and it doesn't feel like it's gripping my finger. On this side, I'm still a little tacky. Just checking other bits of the model, and I'm doing this with my offhand, like with the holding hand as I'm moving around and stuff. I'm just checking to see whether or not I can feel how tacky the varnish still is. The longer I leave this varnish go, and by leave this varnish go, I mean like if I leave this overnight, and normally I would, if I was doing this in my own time, this would be where I'd say like, okay, we sign off for the night. That piece is over today. I'm gonna let this harden off. If I'm trying to do this faster, this is where I keep coming back to how much air I apply heat briefly and then go back to blowing lots of cold air at it. It's just a means of getting this dried slightly faster. Because okay, I'll talk you through the next steps. The next step that I'm going to do at this point is I am going to be using an oil paint. Could I use the oil paint just straight over top the acrylic? Yes, absolutely. In most cases, go for it. Airbrushed on paint is super thinly applied. We have a very delicate series of colors here that I want to preserve. I want to preserve this series of colors. You guys can see what this color looks like. I'm going to be coming in with Payne's Gray and Black oil paints. I am going to be pretty aggressive about getting them in certain places and then wiping them back out of places just so that we can see these veins and stuff starting to come up. If I don't do that with a good varnish coat underneath of it, there is a minor chance that I rip up some of this transition. It's not such a big deal when you're using like a solid color. Again, if I was doing this on a Space Marine, no big deal. If I'm just have, you know, like ultramarine blue down on the model and I'm going over it with an oil wash, I'm not going to care so much. I don't care. If it's something like a Nurgle Marine and it's all grody and gross anyway, I don't care so much. This, it's really important for me to preserve, and I don't want to have to come back and redo the whole transition phase again, because you guys can see it's work and I don't want to redo that work. So just one of those things, knowing that that is the situation that we find ourselves in, it behooves me. It is a good idea for me right now to just give it a little bit of extra time to dry. And that's sort of what I'm hedging on right now. And I'm wondering whether it's just, you know, it's probably a better decision for me to just set this aside for like 20 minutes, half hour, and just let it harden a little bit of its own volition. Then we'll come back to it. So we will come back to this guy. In the meantime, let's talk a little bit about our base. I made the base beforehand, or at least I started the base beforehand. This was base coated in exactly the same way that I base coated everything else. So I lined this up with the model, with the actual Arch-Revenant. I decided which direction I wanted my light coming from, so it's approximately like this. Just blue coats of... So we started off with just a neutral gray, and then I blew a little bit of white at it, FW Delorani white ink at it, just to create sort of the overall light map on the model. I did some aversions to like bright whites in certain areas, just because I knew they were going to be shadowed because they're under his feet and whatnot, but you guys can still see. After that, I came back with a combination of smoky ink and, Game Color Smoky Ink and Game Ink Black, just with a big old brush, and just swipe that all around the model. The skull itself got a little bit of golden flesh on it, just again swiped at it. The holes and stuff that are on here, that is an intentional choice. I want this to look like decayed bone because it is a skull and everything. The like teeny tiny little holes, and I don't know whether or not that's going to show up on stream. It's at least trying. There you guys go. That is intentional. I will show someday how to do decayed bone like this. It is not that hard, and it shows up brilliantly. This is the byproduct of greasy gamer hands. I'll put it that way. Like it is genuinely a byproduct of greasy gamer fingers. It allows you to get these nice tiny little divots. It's really interesting as far as the texture goes. And then the rest of this, I'm just sort of trying to tie it to the model, but not do as much with it. So we've got our, this is mahogany. Model Air mahogany. We've got little bits of fall green that I've started mixing into the vines just towards the end of the vines. I picked out some of the like blocks of detritus that are on here that I've put in back into mahogany. And then otherwise it's just had a bunch of washes put onto it. The next step as far as that goes is more washing. I am going to, well, we can talk through it. I'm going to use Black Forest Green and just a ton of water, if I'm honest. Like, it's Black Forest Green, lots of water, a little bit of airbrush thinner, and a little bit of matte varnish. And that becomes... I'll show you what I'm actually mixing here. Hang on. Let's see if I can move this around so that you guys can at least see what's going on. There we go. So just in the cup here, that's probably 5 parts water, 3 parts 3 parts paint. I was gonna say 1 part ultra matte varnish and 1 part airbrush thinner, but I guess it's gonna be 2 parts ultra matte varnish and 1 part paint thinner, approximately, for a ratio. And all I'm doing with this is I'm gonna be knocking this into weird spots on the model. It's not going everywhere. It's not an all-over wash. This is not meant to be that sort of treatment. What I am trying to do with this is break up the brown tones, because there's a lot of brown on our base right now, in subtle ways. So I'm going to choose areas of the model. I mean, if we think of this as a forest floor, right now I'm choosing areas of the model that I want to have just a different tone to them. We can call it mossy or something like that, but again, I'm just mostly concerned with this is a big brown brick right now, and adding more interest to the base is going to be best for everyone. The other thing I can do to really bring even more interest to the base is do something similar with a brighter green. Again, just really thin down our fall green here. So this is scale 75, so this is scale color fall green. And again, I've got that very, very thin down. You can see how thin it is on my hand. And I'm going to choose similar or other parts of the base and just put a little bit of this down. I'm going to hit this all again with with the original wash, with the combination of smoky ink and black ink. So it's not like this is gonna stand out. Like you guys can see, as I put it down, it just sort of absorbs itself into the background and is gone. It's just that it's a yellowy green, and I wanted some other tones in the earth other than just like white, black, and brown. Just indicating that there's something else going on in the dirt. And now we've got sort of a mottled, patchy sort of situation. I can use a little bit of that forest green. Just to brighten up. And again, you can see how thin this is. I'm just using a tiny amount of that forest green though on the brush. Picking out leaves and some of our more vibrant stems on this little vine that's wrapped around here. Again, I'm not going to put that much detail into the base. This is not where we want our eye going, but we do want it to feel a part of the same world. The other thing that's going to go into this whole situation with the basing is we are going to put like grass tufts and stuff on there. So I might just run and grab a couple of grass tufts, a moss tuft, some grass tufts. You can tell I didn't have those on the Spirit of Dirthu. I never did actually finish the basing on that guy, or like all of him. This is the problem of old Steve or Steve in the past, is I would get bored with the projects partway through and just be like, okay, well, good enough. Looks cool to me. I'm done with him. So again, this is a combination of black ink and smoky ink. It is very dilute, and I'm going over everything. Everything, 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 everything. I'm going to go over the skull. I'm going to go over the plants. I'm going to go over everything, everything. Even the stuff you just did with that green ink to make everything look less similar? Yes. Everything. The reason why I'm doing that is A, I want to darken everything down another step or so. And B, well, yeah, I want to darken everything down another step. That's a big part of it. The other part of it is that I can always reapply. Like, I can always come back and grab those. Both those colors are still live on my wet palette right now. I can grab them and mix them into the inks, and that's cool. And even though we did work to, you know, like match the vines to what's on the body of our, we still want differentiation. We don't want him to look like he is standing, or like he is a part of the base. He is his own separate thing. We want him to him, her, it. It has breasts, but it's also made of wood, so I don't know how to gender it. That feels weird to say, but like, also, weirdly, I'm getting hung up on it this week, so whatever. Continuing, so you guys can see, just another swipe at it, all of it with the ink. If I don't like where something is pooling, I just wet my brush and I can swipe at it a bunch, get some of it to come off on my thumb. Now, if I really wanted to mess about, I could also put some more golden flesh onto the brush and deal with the skull and I don't care. I don't care. It's not that important. It's a base. But I am going to come back with just touches of our bright green. Again, it doesn't read as green. It's just modulating. Like, it's just modulating our wash, right? Bright green touches. Again, our black forest green, and give that some touches. We're just breaking up the big, colossal black-brown wasteland that's here. Do I get some of it on the wood? Yeah, why not? It's a mossy forest floor, right? Okay. I'm going to grab a grass tuft. We are going to go on a little bit of a break. And by a break, I mean I'm going to run to the other room, grab some grass tufts. We'll apply some grass tufts. We will make sure that they are also a part of this scene, and we'll go from there. But for like 2 seconds, I've just got to go to my office here, grab some grass tufts. I'll be back. Hey, we're back. Sorry, left myself on mute there for a second. Let's talk about what I've got here for supplies. So this is all from Woodland Scenics, actually. Well, this guy here is from Woodland Scenics. It is just clump foliage. It's actually not clump foliage, so this is something foliage. It has a specific name, and I'm forgetting it right now. I promise when I think about it, I will go back and put it in the description, or if you ask me when I start posting photos of this on Insta, I will tell you exactly what it's called, but it is the foliage that I was using on the ground for my old, like for the first series of troops. So again, just bringing it back so that the army all works together. I've also got, so this is finally foliage from, again, this is from Woodland Scenics. I'll use a little bit of this on the base, just because it makes sense to do so that it's tied with the rest of the army. And then I do also have, these are moss tufts. Now I'm trying to remember if it's gamer grass. It's not gamer grass that makes these. Who makes these? This might be one of the hobby companies, like the scale train, like scale model train companies, which I actually get most of my scenic supplies from that sort of stuff, as opposed to, I have done an order from Green Stuff World just because I needed laser cut bases for my start collecting army for my Cities of Sigmar army that we're going to do when we hit 100 followers, which now is a good time to talk about that. So both Adam and I are going to be doing, we're going to be doing a big long live stream when we hit 100 followers between Twitch and YouTube. So if you're on Twitch, it counts. If you're on YouTube, it counts. Give us a like, follow, subscribe. When we hit 100 between the two services, we're going to do $250 of the giveaways. I've got Steam vouchers. I've got Games Workshop gift cards. We've got all sorts of stuff to give away, and we're just gonna go for as long as it takes for the two of us to get a start collecting box painted. So I'm excited because it is a speed painting competition, or a speed painting challenge, which is not normally my operating style, but I'm really excited for the models that I've got. I think I've got an army that will lend itself appropriately to being speed painted. Not quite as fast as like a Stormcast or like a Sylvaneth army, but I'm happy with trying to do the Cities of Sigmar as a speed paint as a speed paint project, at least the ones that I'm going to be using for the start collecting challenge, because I am modding an army. Like, I am going to build a 2,500 point army or so. All I have to say is I love gyrocopters. I love them so much. But yeah, so I've got, we're going to take care of that. Yeah, if you or a friend, you know, if you're already a follower of the channel, we'd love it if you could recommend it to a friend, just so that we could, you know, grow the community. The faster we grow, the closer we're going to get to doing giveaways. So I need PVA glue so that I can actually attach this stuff. I left it in the other room. I will be back. Sorry about that. 2 seconds here. And we're back. We are back. Hello, everybody. Hope you had a decent break. I had a very nice break. Got to spend a little bit of time outside with my puppers. Oh boy, we are back to the same conundrum. You know what? We're gonna set this stuff aside, our wingling beast here aside for tonight. I'm not quite certain that we're to a point where I am happy putting a bunch of friction on this model, so we're gonna set this guy aside and let him dry out tonight. Tomorrow, I will be back probably earlier in the day. I'm gonna try and do an EU-friendly stream, so probably around 10, 11 o'clock a.m. tomorrow. I'll be back online, 10 or 11 a.m. Mountain time, that is, for a couple hours while we hopefully finish this guy off. Let's keep working on our transitions here. So, the obvious difference between working these transitions with the airbrush and with the brush is that I am going to be doing a lot of glazing with the brush. And as I was saying before when I was talking about doing these transitions with the brush as opposed to with the airbrush, these transitions take many, many thin glares. So many. Yellow is a particularly transparent color, period. So getting to full opacity with a yellow paint and not having it turn out chalky and having it get to full opacity is definitely a challenge with a brush. It's not insurmountable. How I started off this particular project, this transition area here, is with just some wet blending. And I'll show you how that goes on the other side here. I'm just going to get a couple of coats of yellow, really working our yellows up to their maximum brightness there, and then we'll come back, work down to through our midtones and into our purples. Nice thing about everything drying nearly immediately right now is that I can do these transitions fairly quickly because everything is drying out so quickly. So that's the nice part of right now in the desert, the lonely desert of Calgary, Alberta, Canada right now. That's a nice portion of it, is that the paints are all drying out quickly enough that I can work this fairly quickly with individual coats. The obvious downside of that is, well, I mean, obvious downside. The downside of it is obviously that doing this with the brush is slow and somewhat painful. So now I'm mixing in transitional colors. Again, I'm just bringing the transitions to where I want the transitions to be. So I'm going into both our yellow, pulling it downward. And I can come in with our purple now. Just go over the transition at the bottom as we get it closer to our darks. And then what I'm doing for our final transition is just mixing some of that same color that we're using on the base. So this is a combination of black ink and smoky ink. And I'm using that together to create our deepest shadow colors and just using that to trim back certain areas. And then we just keep going over the transition points between those. So
said Sphere just rated the channel with 2 viewers.
Hey, thanks for the raid, man.
Said thank you for following Walter's Workshop.
Thanks for the follow, Walters.
Walter's Workshop. Said Walter 52 raid, Walter 52 raid, Walter 52 raid, Walter 52 raid, Walter 52 raid.
Thanks.
Said Walter's Workshop dash please refrain from spamming emotes. Said good evening.
Hey man, how's it going? How's it going, Sphere? Thanks for the raid, buddy. Also, thank you, Walter, for the raid. I truly appreciate it. Welcome, thank you for joining us tonight.
Said doing all right.
So we're still just working on some of the transitions on our blade here. So again, this is the Arch-Revenant, just a Sylvaneth Arch-Revenant. The transition that we're doing here is matched with the transition on the wings of our dude. If you guys have more questions because you just joined the channel or would like to know more about how we've gotten to this point, just throw it up in chat, man. We will. I'm more than happy to answer questions about this soon.
Said Sphere was the raider. I was along for the ride, haha. Always happy to find another mini painter on Twitch.
Oh well.
Sphere. Said bit off camera, looking beautiful. Love the colors.
Thanks, man. Oh yeah, I'm constantly off camera. Keep letting me know because I am a wanderer. I already know that about my particular style is I'll put it literally anywhere. But so we're working right now. So the idea of this guy is we're doing a fall colored Sylvaneth army that I've got other bits to from back in ye olde days. I actually started this army with a start collecting box in like I don't know, whenever the first Sylvaneth start collecting box came out.
I have a problem with that myself sometimes. LOL.
I think everybody does. The only guy that I've ever watched on Twitch who has never gone off camera, this is all credit to him, is Mini Painting Den. And I think that Mini Den, the reason he can do it is because he's using, big busts and 75mm scale stuff. So he's got lots of room for detail on that sort of thing without it getting all ridiculous on him. But, we take what we can do. I'm using scale color Sunset Purple here and Teneri Yellow. Just it's a weird transition.
Said, oh, he has been painting for a long time also.
Yeah, also that. And, he's been a pro mini painter since early 2010s, I think, is the first time I saw his stuff come up. So he's been at it for a while, and he's been on Twitch for years now. So at least I think he has. I'm pretty certain he has. I don't know. I come from the land of YouTube, so we are dual broadcasting on YouTube and Twitch, because that's who I am. But yeah, so what were you working on tonight that you swapped over or finished up and decided to do the raid with? Or raid following? Were you working tonight, or did you guys just decide to come on over to the channel together? Well, I guess for sure you guys came over together. You're part of the raid, but
said working on some Twickham and Spires from Conquest.
oh, nice, cool. I've had lots of opportunity to see Conquest stuff painted. Well, not lots, but obviously not in comparison to GW stuff. But never actually gotten through Conquest. Never had the opportunity on one of those models. At least not yet. I mostly keep myself to Reaper.
Sphere. Said yeah, Walter was hanging out for a bit with me, and I decided to raid someone I haven't in a while or not at all.
Fair enough. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I do a lot of Reaper, GW. A lot of GW, and yeah, I'm trying to find more models that I really enjoy because it's not that I don't like GW models. It's just that I don't know. Sometimes you got to chase some trends, man. So I'm just swapping over to the other side of the mini here. I'm gonna do a little bit of wet blending to start off of this side of the model. This is a problem with wet blending when it's 1,000 degrees outside. I don't know where you guys are at. I am in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and oh boy, it has been 30 degrees now for I don't know. With very few exceptions, the last 3 weeks has basically been above 30. So let's see, it's been since the 24th of June, I think, was the last time that we were truly. Well, I guess we had a week there where the weather wasn't deadly hot outside, but
Weird. Said I mostly paint GW and Conquest. Conquest cause I love the game and GW cause I love the models, but have painted a bust or two, and once I get some projects done might branch out some more. Choiciest but said Sphere dash please refrain sending long messages.
okay, choice bot. Hang on 2 seconds. I'm gonna go and teach choice bot a lesson. Yeah, it wasn't that. Yeah, it wasn't that long. It has 250 set as the cap right now, or I think it's 140 as the like default cap on my bot, and I am going to go teach it a lesson as soon as we're done the stream because it's not that long a message. It's supposed to be that it's anything over 500, but I obviously have got that bot just right twisted right now, so it's fine. Yeah, Conquest as a game appeals to me, mostly for me, like as far as like playing games, Legion, or sorry, Star Wars Legion, I guess I should call its full title. Star Wars Legion, Estrella, Kill Team, and Blood Bowl are like my actual like mini games that I play, and then D&D. So lots of D&D. That's hence why the Reaper painting is like I've done basically every Bones model I've painted at some point in time for some reason. Mostly, well, and that for some reason is D&D. Yeah, the Blood Bowl. I've got 2 Blood Bowl armies that are in process right now, and that's what I normally stream is the Blood Bowl armies. It's just I'm off work this week, and I chose a project and was like, I'm gonna stream literally every day because I don't have a day job right now. Well, temporarily. While I am off this week, I don't have a day job, so why don't I spend a little bit more time on the stream? But we are working on the Orkland Raiders, which are my Oakland Raiders inspired orc team. So black on silver armor.
Workshop. Said LUL.
And then we got the Dwarf Giants, which I got a bunch of these guys in various states of doneness. I just wanted to take the week off and like paint some other stuff because, you know, as much as it is tons of fun painting Troll Slayers and whatnot. Actually, it's been a couple weeks that we've been off because
Said I always say I am going to do that when I take off work but never do.
oh, that's
Really Raiders fan. He going to unfollow now LOL.
listen, I'm not a Raiders fan. The entire reason why I decided to go with the Orkland Raiders is because it started off as a bad pun and then it turned into like, can I do like a matte black on top of like gloss black and like render it all in matte, like in scale color, right? Like I majority of the time I paint using scale color. So it just turned into a personal challenge and then it got kind of out of control. And now either the Raiders or the Dwarf Giants are going to be, I'm going to take one of them to Armies on Parade this year because I am going to do Armies on Parade 2022. So one of them is getting a full board and set out and all the rest of it. It just sort of depends on which one I'm feeling as we get closer. Yeah. I mean, how could I not? I mean, like, Raiders fans are basically orcs to begin with. Like, let's be serious.
Spear. Said I think my Necrons will be my armies on parade.
Yeah, that's fair. I did 2 Indominus boxes plus. So there's 2 full Indominus boxes worth of Necrons that I've got painted. Plus I've got probably about another 800 points worth of Necrons that I've done. Immortals, like outside of the 2 Indominus boxes, I've got a set of Immortals, 3 sets of Flayers. I redid a Ossiarch Bone Reaper. Like I made an Ossiarch Bone Reaper into a Flayer Lord because that was fun for me. Let's see, and then Triarch Stalker for all of it painted up. I did that in about, I don't know, 2 weeks or so, right after or right around the holidays, because I brought home a new puppy in the middle of December and was basically attached at the hip to the puppy. And so from like the middle of, you might be able to hear them in the background. Him and his sister are playing right now. But yeah, I brought home the puppy came home in December and we were basically joined at the hip. So He learned how to sit patiently beside my desk while I painted stuff, and yeah.
Sphere. Said building 2 Doomsday Arcs ATM and then painting 2 of the new destroyers, 20 warriors, a Tesla Destructor, Royal Warden, and Tomb Blades LOL.
Nice.
Said Sphere dash please refrain sending long messages.
All right, choice bot.
Sphere. Said bot, we are going to have LOL.
I think we should throw hands against bot already. I'm gonna go turn him off entirely. Hang on one second. Now I gotta get him out of Streamlabs.
Walter's Workshop. Said LUL.
Thanks, Walter. Thanks for being able to laugh about it, guys, because, yeah, definitely deserves, definitely deserves to get deactivated. Bad bot. Let's... Okay. Widgets. Where are you, stupid bot?
Workshop. Said I had an over-aggressive bot back in the day. I know them feels LOL.
Yeah, man. Okay, stream bot. In the meantime, I can at least give you guys something to look at while I am looking at where I can eliminate some of the ridiculousness that's going on with Streambot here. Okay. Goodbye, ChoiceBot. ChoiceBot has been deactivated. Temporarily. Go to town. Use all of the aggressive language you would like. My personal favorite is the list of things that Streambot thinks are swears. It's always surprising and shocking what it does and does not think are swears. And by surprising, I mean unpredictable, and sometimes it just definitely decides things that I'm like, really?
Choiciest. Said Sphere dash please refrain from spamming emotes.
Really? I just turned you off. Okay, it hasn't deactivated yet. Hang on. It should be deactivated.
Said LOL and now that.
And now for that, yep. It is off. I don't know. All right, throw something ridiculous up into chat. Let's see if it's actually deactivated now. Or not. Like, it's really up to you guys. I don't care. Oh.
Walter's Workshop. Said Walter 52 Corgi, 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 Walter 52 Corgi.
Apparently it's not dead yet.
Said or Chris WA or Chris AA or Chris AA or Chris AA or Chris AA or Chris GH Spear Hype. Choiciest. Said Walter's Workshop dash please refrain from spamming emotes.
All right, now I'm just having fun annoying my bot, so...
Refrain from spamming emotes.
Overly aggressive bot, go. You are off, bot. Why do you think you're still on? Be off. Be off or be nothing. No, stop turning yourself back on. Oh boy.
Said at least it's not banning or timing out ATM LOL.
Yeah, I have no... So normally, like on our normal streams on Tuesday, Thursdays, I have a co-host on with me, and I turn most of the features of the bot off because Adam's also our mod, and he's good at his job. Doesn't need Choiciest bot to help him. But since it's only me on stream tonight, because again, this is like an off time for us to normally stream, just because it is my week off of work. Yeah. I just decided to let the bot do a little bit more, and now I'm just having fun with it being annoyed at me, at you guys, at us. I mean, I feel like I'm contributing to its annoyance, really. by continuing to ask you guys, like, hey, test the bot, see how bad it's doing. The answer is very bad. Bad bot. Let's keep working on this glaive blade. It annoys me that this glaive is not symmetrical, but that's fine. We will live through it.
Workshop. Said bad bot no cookie.
Yeah, I don't even know if it knows bad bot command. You'd hope that most bots wouldn't these day and age, but like I didn't program the bot. I'm using, like, I use Streamlabs OBS, so I'm using the Streamlabs default bot and its mod tools, and I honestly, they don't give you any insight into its actual command structure, so I mean, they probably do. I just haven't gone through and read all the documentation, because why would I? Why would I read documentation? So I get a...
Over to Streamlabs because I like some of its...
I looked at XSplit. Anybody? I mean, they get... and handling it fairly efficiently. That's not a regular co-host. Just, he's not here because it's his... He's worked all day today. It's his regular day not on the stream, so... but we got a whole bunch of giveaways and stuff that we're doing. There's like $250 worth of stuff. GW gift cards, Steam key giveaways, because I've got stuff for Vermintide 2 and a bunch of other GW games that, and then just straight up Steam gift cards. And Adam and I are doing Start Collecting boxes. We're gonna do Start Collecting box stream where both of us have picked a Start Collecting box. He is going to be doing probably Slaves to Darkness, though he hasn't actually decided that for certain yet. And I have a whole series of Cities of Sigmar dudes that I have done a bunch of conversion work on that I am going to be painting on stream. And so we're doing an approximate Start Collecting box, since like I'm not doing an actual Start Collecting box, but we're doing approximately 800 points each that we gotta paint in one long stream. So it's gonna be a speed paint challenge, which is not my forte by any means.
Walter's Workshop. Said nice.
Yeah. Well, if you come on back for that one, definitely something for everyone, and I legitimately plan on doing it in a weekend.
I know the feeling. Did several years for internet support, desktop support, cybersecurity, and now just mostly on projects and metrics. LOL. Choicest, but said Sphere dash please refrain sending long messages.
You are off, ChoiceBot. I can see you. Notice Cloudbot is off. Stop it, ChoiceBot. Stop it, ChoiceBot. Nobody likes you, ChoiceBot. Nobody. Yeah, I actually I worked in IT for 3 years now. I run not-for-profit companies. I do IT for like huge variety of nonprofits, as well as strategic planning and whatnot. So strategic planning, graphic design, and IT support for nonprofits. So it is a much nicer side of things to be on, especially since one of the like associate nonprofits that I work with is like the former nonprofit that I was a part of. So it's nice from that perspective. So at least one of the like IT nonprofits that I used to work with has some idea. They are by far the best and worst users that I get to deal with on an ongoing basis. Best because, you know, they're at least willing to Google their problem first, and worse because they have all sorts of ideas about how fun it will be to try and break everything we build. So, and I honestly can't blame them. It is fun to break things that other people have built. They are not wrong. But yeah, I've never actually had to do frontline help desk stuff. I came out into the industry. I came into the industry through White Hat and stayed on those sorts of vulnerability teams, vulnerability and threat assessment teams and risk management teams, basically all the way through. And now I don't have to do that.
I just work for a Vigish Corp
Yeah. I worked in a particular sector of IT, and now among other jobs. But yeah, I now work contracted for. That's a yieldy day job is contract work for nonprofits because I don't have to hate myself when I'm done work at the end of the day. I at least get to feel like the world might be a slightly better place.
Said Lucky then LOL. I crawled my way through the trenches.
Yeah, I always had. I was one of those guys that always had the penchant, and if I didn't go white hat, I was definitely gonna end up in prison. So. It was either go white hat or fully embrace the dark and see how much I could get away with before somebody started really cracking down on my activities. I mean, I grew up in the nascence of the internet, and
Walter's Workshop said I used to work for a big company as a designer. Now I'm running a small company.
hey, that's the dream, right? If you can work for yourself, half the battle. I know it's a whole different type of stress, but like getting to run your own shop, that is always nice. I do not run the shop for me. I work with alongside 4 colleagues, so just in a small company, but it's nice. It's nice. It's definitely a safe place to be.
Said, oh no, I run it for my boss LUL.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Still not a bad place as long as you have some say in the run. I mean, in a company with 4 employees, and 2 of them are owners, and non-tech savvy. Like I am the tech side of that company. So it's a little easier for me because a lot of the time they're like, "Is there a tech solution to this?" And I'm like, "Yes, maybe." And they're like, "Cool. Have some dev cash."
I went to conference for. He talked about his days as a hacker and how he would maintain the company's print server he hacked into so no one would notice what he was doing with it. LOL. Choiciest but said sphere dash please with brain sending.
You're off. Yeah, no, I came up in the Wild West of the internet, so the first time I got online was 1994, and I was absolutely fascinated with how much trouble I could get myself and other people into using the internet. So it's probably good that I went the direction that I did instead of multiple other directions that were available. This is vastly preferable to prison time. Listen, I haven't sold anybody's information on the dark web ever. Probably. So we're good, right? I haven't sold personal information on the dark web for cash or Bitcoin or any other form of compensation. So we can call that a career well careered so far. I mean, that's always an option. World gets bad. Still have that skill. Probably take me a little bit to get back into it, but not as long as most people would hope. Not as long as I would hope. Let's be serious. I'm the major one who's like, don't be that guy anymore, dude. Don't be that guy anymore. But, yeah. So we're just trying to get to the point where I can even out.
So much of it on there these days that you have to have a lot of it in order to make any money with it anymore. LOL.
Oh yeah, ever since there's no value to one identity. I've looked. I mean, everything I've had has been stolen. I was hit by Equifax, so
Is ransomware stuff these days.
yeah, and threat assessment on ransomware is getting more sophisticated as well. It's getting harder and harder. Just collective action. This is one of the things why I work with nonprofits is big collective actions are taking care of ransomware because threat diagnosis is becoming easier. It still infects all the time, but being able to recognize it once it's into an environment has become easier as people are becoming more aware of it. I'm sure. I mean, it's the never-ending rat race, right? One side gets slightly better at detecting the threat, the other side gets better at hiding it. So, ransomware is still going to be big headlines for the next 3 to 5 years, I'm pretty sure. But we'll see. We will hopefully see an end to it. I can't imagine that we are going to be living under the threat of ransomware for all that much longer. I mean, it'll seem like an eternity in risk assessment ways, but let's put it this way. I sat through a conference not even 3 weeks ago where Lloyd's of London is starting to insure against ransomware attacks. So when you got conservative, highly conservative insurance companies starting to offer insurance programs to highly conservative businesses, the threat is solved. Like, once insurance starts getting involved, and I don't mean conservative as in like a political ideology, I mean it from the standpoint of like, they are not risk takers. Like, Lloyd's of London is famously not risk taking. They are extremely risk averse. Once they start getting involved in that sort of thing, the end of that market is near, because they're not going to expose themselves to like billions of dollars worth of asset liability. So we'll still see it in old systems or under monitored systems, I'm sure, for, like I said, 3 to 5 years or so. But in the sectors that I deal with most directly through the nonprofit, collective action is starting to take care of it. There's enough collective will to that I don't think that ransomware is going to be that big of a deal for that much longer. Literally, we threw money at the problem for, a decade now, and it finally has made enough headlines that we're getting real solutions built. So all right, we're getting closer on that. I'm gonna swap brushes off of my like cruddy synthetic there, and I'm just gonna start doing some of this stuff to make this look a little bit more magical. So let's get some of the magical-y glints here. I'm gonna do some edge highlighting. Again, I'm just taking Teneri Yellow right now and doing some quick edge highlights just to get our form really well defined. We'll continue to smooth out that transition. Like, that transition is not done, but it is to a point where now we're gonna want to see volumes and stuff before we start really narrowing in on.
Said knocks on wood. Yeah, I haven't seen it making as many waves as it did a few years ago.
So without revealing too much of where I have worked before, we have seen the attacks minimized. There was lots of headlines. I can divulge part of where I work. I used to work in Canadian higher ed security, so post-secondary institutions. We've had a number of like headline payouts in the last 10 years, but in the last 3, network architecture has caught up with it in a lot of ways, and then collective threat assessment has caught up with it in the rest. So it's now like to the point where, yes, breaches are still happening, we are still finding it, but normally the assessment is in place with a solution before most things are activated. And even when they activate, at least as far as Canadian higher ed goes, most Canadian higher ed institutions have cumulative threat assessment. We can we do remote audits, or they do remote audits of each other's architecture and look for the vectors, so that even if the individual campus that it's on or the individual department that it's inside of doesn't detect the threat fast enough, there is enough resource behind it that it doesn't really travel.
Said, yeah, since I have moved more into onboarding software, projects, and metrics for my team, not been on the edge of security/IT news.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And that is like one of my clients, but we're here painting. Let's talk about paint. I don't know. It's just neat to meet other people that are into both that side of things. I mean, it's not uncommon, but it's just neat.
Said LOL.
So, a couple of things that I'm noticing as I'm looking at the model. Big things that I want to do is I want to maintain concentric circles of color. So with our, let's hold our backpack up in place. So a little backpacky friend. We are now getting into the circles of color. So we've got this one large circle that is our glaive blade, the wings, all the rest of it. We've got this smaller green circle that I want to make more pronounced, which I'm going to do. We've got a gem down here. And then we've got an even smaller circle of the purple as we come towards the head.
Everyone with the IT geek speak. Let's get back to painting.
Right? Let's get back to painting. So our concentric circles, as I was talking about, so we have purple and then we have our armor colors. I want a little bit more green because we've got the hair, the staff, the shield, and the horns all as our sort of green circle that is one out. And then we've got our large circle that is the purple again. So yes, we alternate in between with the browns and the oranges and whatnot, but more than anything, those are the circles that I'm looking at, is right, purple, green, purple, and in all cases I want it to do sort of the same thing. So purple, green, purple, right? Like we keep moving out between those areas of color. That's why, you know, like the horns and the main part of the bow or the staff and all the rest of it, that's why they are the same sort of desaturated green color or desaturated yellows. We're just alternating between them. So, but looking at the composition right now, I can see little things that are making me less happy. So I want to make sure that I bring the brightness up a little bit just on this part of the glaive so that I've got a nice reflection there. I also want to work on making sure that this part of the staff has a little bit more green into it. So that we are reading the separation between the glaive blade and the staff itself. And then I do want to get a little bit more, a little bit cooler tone into the hair here, just so that it does stand out, so that we got nice separation between the elements.
And take some pics.
All right, man. Well, thanks for hanging out, man. I'm gonna keep working here on our duder. I don't have that much left actually that I'm gonna be on for tonight, so. I might, if you're going to take off, I might, because I'm waiting, like on, well, let's talk through it. On this part of the model, and this is something that we'll get to tomorrow on the EU-friendly stream. This part of the wings, I am going to be using oil paints, like I'm going to be using an oil wash just so that I can really wipe out all of this area. I am going to be using quite a cool color to do the differentiation between the... Oh, that's fair. My second desk is in another room. This is actually my work computer. At any rate, so yeah, what I'm gonna be doing with this part of the model is I am gonna be using an oil wash, and you can see on here there's a gloss varnish. I'm really waiting for this gloss varnish to harden because the transition on the actual wings themselves is very delicate because it's all blown on with airbrush paint, and as much as you can do oils directly over acrylics and it works out just fine, like 99.9% of the time, and it does, like there's no doubt about it. I've done it literally hundreds of times, no problems with it. I just want to be extra certain in this scenario. So because it is going to be quite vigorous, there is so much texture to these wings just with the like membrane being below the rest of it. I am going to be wiping at it fairly hard, and I don't want to start wiping off parts of that transition. So yeah, I'm gonna take care of that. Yeah, I mean, Sphere, I've been live now for 2.5 hours. I only normally go for 3. I can't do much over 3 because at the 3-hour mark, my dogs start going crazy because they're like, oh man, Dad's done streaming. Time to get back on him. But compositionally, that's what I'm going for. So let's get some of the little bits that I know I need to do done. So again, let's get our yellow. So again, just Teneri yellow. Gonna come in here. I really want to brighten up this bottom area of the glaive so that I've got a really bright patch there. Then I'll transition that back down to our purple. Just quick little wet blend here, because makes my life slightly easier with the wet blend. So again, I just apply the two colors, void out the brush, mix them together on the model. If I need to adjust colors, which I do, I can just come back in with a little bit more Teneri yellow. Again, mostly void out the brush and mix those together. And mix a little bit more purple up, a little further up the model. And I can always smooth out that transition with some glazing here in a minute. In the meantime, let's talk about how we're going to deal with edge highlights on this glaive. So the reason why I want to do edge highlights on the glaive is because we are going to make this a magical glaive. So the same twilight, sunset, dusk effect that we're doing on the wings here, once we've got everything kind of painted up on them, we're doing on the glaive itself. And having those nice sharp edges is going to give us, this is really the basis for this like magical effect, is having nice, well-defined areas of the glaive. So not only are we doing the like transitions that we normally would with like power weapons or any other sort of like glowy weapons. It's not quite a non-metallic metal because I'm not going anywhere near as far with contrast as I would with non-metallic metals. But what we are attempting to do with this, as I slowly put the line on it. Sorry, I know that this is probably off stream. I'll see if I can get it back on. So I'm just tracing the line along the top of that division between the two surfaces of the glaive. Probably easier if I do it the way that my hand actually draws as opposed to trying to like weird push that. Here we go. It gives me nice separation between the two gradients that we put onto our glaive. My brush is dried out and I am still trying to do this because I might be an idiot. There we go. Not great, but we can obviously make little corrections and stuff. That's no big deal. Knock that line back where it's supposed to be. There we go. So the reason why we want that is because the next part of this is I am going to put some like starry background stuff into this. Like I am going to put some like magical symbols and whatnot onto the glaive blade, as well as when we do it on the wings. Like we'll do it at the same time as though we're doing it on the wings on the background. But all of that is going to give us some more magical features. If you have seen the box art for the Arch-Revenant, it's sort of reminiscent to that. I just wanted to change it. The Arch-Revenant is clearly some form of like spring summer Arch-Revenant. I'm going with something that is closer to fall and twilight. So just those are the inspirations for this little model-y deal. Let's get that green. So from before where we were mixing dark forest green that we were using on the base, that same dark forest green, I'm just going to come in here and drop it just like we have on the horns. We want our very deep shadows to be this dark forest green, and then we'll come in and mix out, transition it back to our combination of birch and, fall green as our main colors on there. Let's just make sure that we got good coverage all the way around on this. And that we're using nice dark lines to get... I'm using a little bit of dark lining here rather to separate some of our elements so that they're easily read. They're nice readable elements of our staff. And again, this is an opportunity to bring some cooler colors. It's always a challenge. Like even back when I was doing this for just straight up wood elves, it's always a challenge to bring cool, nice, cold colors into like a fall scheme, right? Everybody thinks of fall colors as being, you know, exclusively oranges and yellows and purples. That's fine. does make for a compelling paint scheme, but it's not particularly well contrasted from saturation standpoint. And it gets a little samey across the whole model. So that's why, again, with like the shield here, we did the same thing where we brought our cooler tones, our greens, into the bottom of the shield. Put these cooler tones now around some of the elements on the staff, just so that they are a little bit more readable. They don't look quite as jumbled, because there's a lot of information that is very, very stacked on this staff. And using dark colors is a good way to sort of break up the model a little bit. Using cold dark colors rather is a pretty good way to break up these areas of the model in particular, so that they read as nice separated elements. Let's get a little bit more down on the bottom. All right, and then one last thing before I'm probably gonna hang it up for tonight here in just a few minutes. But one last element is I do want to make sure that our hair. This is the only thing I can figure out how to do with contrast paints. Not that there's anything wrong with contrast paints, but my use for contrast paints continues to be limited in scope. But one of the fun things that I do like doing with it is using them on particular hairstyles. So this is Space Wolves Gray that I'm using right now. And we already used a little bit of it.
Said I have a few contrasts, but I almost never use them.
Yeah, same here. Like, I've got Skeleton Horde because it works as a really nice, like, neutral brown. I have this Space Wolf Gray because I actually mixed it into Vallejo Metal Color. Like, into Vallejo Metal Color, I want to say white aluminum. It was probably white aluminum when I'm thinking about it now. For a Grey Knight commission that I did. I feel like Grey Knight Steel, which is also a new GW color. Grey Knight Steel to me is a little bit too fanciful with the blue. Like, the blue is very, very pronounced, whereas this is a nice, reasonably desaturated and reasonably transparent blue. And I like using it for facial shadows, like for male facial shadows, and for weird hair tones where I want cool shadows in blonde hair. These are the two very weird circumstances where I like actually using contrast paint. And Skeleton Horde for skeletons. I'm not gonna lie to you, Skeleton Horde on skeletons. Zenithal highlight, a little bit of a dry brush. You can get 100 skeletons done in an hour if you really want to. And since I also play D&D and I'm a necromancer and a fairly high level necromancer, and wanted to paint not 100 skeletons, but a lot of skeletons. Guess how you can paint a lot of skeletons real quick and make your dungeon master hate you. I mean, she doesn't hate me. Was more or less impressed that I whipped out, I think it was 40 or something skeletons that I can summon now. I think she was more or less impressed that I whipped out all the minis and was like, I summoned 40 skeletons, or I spend, whatever it is, a grand total of 18 minutes at the beginning of the day summoning skeletons until there are, 40 of them around me. Also 9 ghouls. I mean, you can't hate somebody who does that. You gotta laugh with it, otherwise you're gonna cry. I've not successfully pulled off my ultimate combo with my skeletons is going to be to use the skeletal ladder cannon or a skeletal cannonball. So you can reserve actions, so you can give all of your skeletons the same directive, and that can be attack people or do whatever.
Said go on my minions. Go clear the dungeon for me.
It's not quite that easy, but so the ultimate attack that I want to pull off at some point in time is you can command all of your minions and give them all the same command, right? So you can use a bonus action to give all of your skeletons commands. So if I give all of my skeletons the commands of, hey, when you receive Uh, let's go with a ladder, because the actual... This is an old D&D trick, I guess, from 3rd edition. If you want to call it a trick, that's probably appropriate. Is you take a whole bunch of summons and you put them in a row. This used to be called the peasant cannon. So you would find a whole bunch of peasants, you put them all in a row, and you say, hey, peasants, each one of you is going to save your action until you have hold of the ladder, and then your action is going to be spent passing, or your reaction is going to be spent passing the ladder onto the next peasant. Until you get to the last peasant in the line, and the last peasant in the line, you tell them, hey, when you get the ladder, direct the ladder towards enemy X, right? So all of this happens, and you say, okay, a round in Dungeons and Dragons lasts 6 seconds. Reaction has to happen during something's round. So let's say the trigger for this is that at the end of my turn, I pick up the ladder, and I pass it to the first peasant in the line. Or in the case of my horde of pretties, I say, okay, skeleton, I pick up the ladder or the cannonball or the, I don't care, stick, rock, brick, doesn't really matter. The object that is solid enough to strike a humanoid or monster with. I say, okay, here you go, skeleton. Here is your rock. And that is the end of my turn. Now, all of those skeletons literally simultaneously take their reaction every time one of them hands off to the other. So, though the rock was in my hands at the start of the turn, or at the end of my turn, before somebody else's turn, like the next in initiative order starts their turn, all of the reactions for all of my skeletons happen basically simultaneously. Accelerating my projectile now to however many feet in 6 seconds. So, you know, if you use a ladder, you put each one of the peasants 10 feet apart, and the last 10 feet is reaching into whatever demon, dragon, whatever, right? So you start the loop, the first peasant grabs it, or skeleton grabs it and hands it to the next guy, and next guy, and however long you accelerate it out for, you have created basically a railgun using your peasants or skeletons. And I don't know about you, but being hit by a supersonic ladder or cannonball or whatever seems like something that, unless you're immune to like physical damage, basically, seems like the type of situation where you end up with a very dead big bad evil guy pretty much as soon as he gets hit by the like whatever projectile the first time. That's pretty much just game over for him at that point in time. Supersonic projectiles is not something that I think D&D has rules for, but I mean, if you can line up all those skeletons and get those commands in without the big bad evil guy being like, hey, wait a minute, no. He deserves to be dead, I guess? I don't know. If I was the DM for that one, I would rule of cool that one and be like, yep, sounds like he's very dead because he was not smart enough to be like, wait a minute, are you assembling the peasant cannon? Stop that. I have also told my DM that this is my ultimate goal with this character, is to assemble and train the peasant cannon. And so far, I don't know, I have to go beat a Sararak or something like that. We're playing Tomb of Annihilation. It has been years on this particular quest, and having to stop in the middle of COVID has not helped. It's an in-person game, so being unable to...
Kind of like all those shows where the bad guy / good guy is allowed to power up, LOL.
Yeah, if you're going to spend 15 minutes going Super Saiyan, like, I should be allowed to just walk up and punch you in the groin as hard as I can before you get there. And if I'm dumb enough to let you go Super Saiyan, then I really deserve whatever fate is going to come of me. Alright, so we cleaned up the hair a little bit more. Cleaned up that. I'm going to use a little bit of this birch, just because I've got a transition here that is basically Teneri Yellow and Teneri Yellow with the Teneri Yellow thing in between. So I'm just going to use some of this birch to just brighten up that edge highlight there so that it is standing out still. So it's very evident that we have an edge highlight there. There we go. not perfect yet. There's still more cleanup to do. We got to refine that line a little bit more, but...
Said or Power Rangers, I summoned a bonk bat to the head. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, if Tommy's going to spend 15 minutes playing the flute so that Dragonzord can show up, I'm not letting Dragonzord show up. Tommy gets a knock to the noggin while I'm 45 feet tall and he is still regular human size. I've never once understood how the Power Rangers like get to stand around in poses while like, I don't know, they wait for Megazord to show up and assemble. And why don't they just assemble Megazord to begin with? Like, why do they wait? Assemble Megazord, get Tommy to show up with like with Dragonzord, just automatically call the sword and just beat Rita Repulsa. Just beat her up while she's still human sized and you are, I don't know, a mega giant robot that has a sword. Just do it that way. Don't wait for her to be 15 feet or 500 feet tall too. Just beat her up when she's tiny. Step on her. You can do this. You're smarter than this, Power Rangers. And if you're not smarter than this, then everyone surrounding you should be. I get it. You're teenagers. You're probably dumb. It's fine. Everyone's a teenager. We're all dumb at that point. I'm not blaming the Power Rangers. But there are like adults around. One of the adults should be like, hey, you guys should just be 40 feet tall and go step on like all of the enemies. Don't wait until they're also 500 feet tall. Step on them. Step on them. When you don't step on them, the negligent damage that is caused by you allowing them to become 500 feet tall, it's unconscionable. At any rate, that's going to be it for me tonight, guys. Thank you for hanging out. Sphere, thank you for hanging out. Walter's Workshop, and everybody else who has tuned in at certain points in time, and those of you who will be watching this on YouTube in the future. I'm Steve Thomas, Choice Minis. Thank you guys so much for watching, commenting.
Superior Spider-Man addresses them with Japanese Spider-Man's Megazord in the comics. Pretty funny.
Yeah, is Superior Spider-Man the one where that's the one where Doc Ock takes over from Peter Parker, right? He's in... I'm gonna do the closing because I got a headache and stuff. It's just time.
Said, yup.
Wait, there's one where he meets Spider-Man? Oh, it's probably not Spider-Man. It's what's her name? Mei? Like the alternate universe? At any rate, I'm Steve Thomas at Choice Minis. Thank you guys so much for watching, commenting, being here with me today. Walter, it is such good conversation that I keep getting distracted from getting offline so that I can go play with my dogs and pee. Yeah, you can follow me at Choice Minis. If you liked what you saw, take a moment, give us a like, subscribe, hit the follow button, hit the little bell.
Said have a good night.
Thanks, man. You too. If you have any suggestions, comments, feedback, anything like that, you can always DM me on any of the social medias that you can find me on, including, you know, like Reddit, Twitch, TikTok. I'm on TikTok. Don't follow me on TikTok. I'm a bad follow. Anyway, you can email us, choiceminis@gmail.com. You can support us by buying our merch, donating in the credits, sharing the stream with a friend. That's really the best way that you can do it, is just share it with other people who are interested in the hobby or who are in the hobby. Yeah, that's really the best way. Thank you guys so much for being with me tonight. I will be back tomorrow about 10 a.m. my time, which is 2 a.m. in the Eastern time zone, 9 o'clock a.m. in the Pacific time zone, and 5 o'clock a.m. or 5 o'clock p.m. in the UK. But it will be 10 o'clock here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Thank you guys very much. Do something about white supremacy. Get vaccinated if you can in ACAB. See you next time.